Connecticut Community Bank at our 5 divisions here in Connecticut, as well as our InsureBank division. Thanks for taking time out to join us. As many of you are aware, we're a unique institution, and we think that we combine the best of being a local community bank with the national scope associated with InsureBank, our highly successful insurance lending business and cash management business. The combination affords us a perspective that a lot of other banks don't have. We service businesses of nearly all sizes and shape and scope, and we do it with folks all over the country. And this helps us build what we think are thoughtful financial solutions for the varying needs of our clients. Many business owners don't realize it, but today we're all in a battle against a criminal element we can't see. The old days, bank robbers would come in and, guns blazing and take the money and run, and the sheriff would track them down. Today, these perpetrators are cyber thieves and disruptors, and they use our own habits and information against us to steal or hold hostage our data, our identification, our financial resources. And we believe it's our job, our role as your bank, to help educate you so that you can further educate your staff and your management team in this cyber war. Keep you alert against this ever-growing threat. You're only as strong as your least prepared employee or customer. And the belief that they're never coming after you because of your size or your location, well, that belief, frankly, is naive and it's untrue. There are untold numbers of attacks on businesses of all types and sizes every hour, every day. So today, we're going to bring you somebody who can help put you on the road to better preparedness as we fight this fight. John Longo is with us. He is the founder and CEO of On-Site Support Services Corp, information systems consulting and systems integration firm based here in Connecticut. John is a well-known expert in security protection practices, trends, procedures. He's worked with government agencies, law enforcement, financial institutions like ours, corporations of all sizes across the country. I'm pleased to be both his client and his friend for almost 2 decades. He is why I have this colored hair. He scares me every day and leads me to action as a CEO, and I appreciate it. So please welcome John Longo.
Well, thank you, Dave. It's a delight to be here. As you know, I'm very passionate about this. I've been doing this at the forefront of cybersecurity for almost 38 years, which makes me a very scary guy and a very old guy. But it's exciting. It's a passion for me, and there are ways, real practical things that everyone can do to make sure that you're just not the low-hanging fruit. And today I want to talk about those techniques that you can use in your organizations, regardless of size, that can significantly reduce your risk of a successful attack. So with that, I'm going to just kind of jump into the presentation here. And I'm not one of those guys that reads PowerPoint slides and insults everybody like they can't read. I want this to be a very practical session where you learn something. I want you to feel free to ask questions at any time when the topic is hot, or if you don't understand anything, please feel free to use the Q&A button that you see on your screen, and I'll get to as many questions as I possibly can. Typically, this presentation is typically in 2 parts. It's 2 hours of what the problem is and 2 hours what the solution is. But I've been able to kind of narrow it down to something that's, practical and things that you really can take away with. But first, let's talk about the numbers, and they're bad numbers. None of these numbers are good. So the first number you see is 50%. When we look at overall cyber crime statistics year over year, and the most recent data that we have for a full year is 2021, we saw a 50% increase in attacks per week over 2020. That is a very scary number in and of itself. 11 seconds. That is the number of successful ransomware attacks that occur every day. $161 doesn't seem like a lot of money. That is the new average cost for each individual record of personal identifiable information, is what it costs a business to, buy credit insurance, reputational risk, etc. 1,748. That is the average attempted attacks against every organization in America. 1,748 per year. That includes not only knocks on the door, but legitimate attempts to steal your data, to inject your systems with malware, to exfiltrate data, and to encrypt your data in a ransomware environment. 316 days. That seems like an awful long time, but that is the new average for how long it takes to locate and contain a data breach. More and more, we're seeing these threat actors, not just quick hit, kind of the, spray and pray that you'll click on a link, but they want to get into your system. They want to gain intelligence of how you do business, who your contacts are, how you compose emails. So think of having a burglar in your house living with you for 316 days before you know about it. On average, for small to medium-sized businesses, the average hacker is in your system for over 100 days before you even know about it. 127%. That's the increase in ransomware attacks from 2020 to 2021. We see no sign, and I certainly don't see any sign of that slowing at all. And I expect that number to increase almost at the same level between 2021 and 2022. 300,000. There are 300,000 new pieces of malware daily, and I want to stress that, daily, to target individuals and organizations. Some of this malware is specifically designed for specific things, and we'll go through some of those a little bit later on in the presentation. $6.9 billion was the victim losses that occurred in 2021. And that's probably not the real number. It's probably much higher. That's what's been reported. It is, something that is increased on the average of about 60% per year. 90%, the next number. Of all successful data breaches, 90% of them occur from phishing, which is email. You get an email, looks legit, it's got a link, it's got an attachment. You hover over the name, you click on the name, and it looks like it came from John Longo, and it did, because the hacker had been in my system and sent out what looks like to be a legitimate email. Of that 90% of all data breaches occurring through phishing, 65% of those are spear phishing, and we'll get that into the difference between the various phishing techniques a little bit later. 30,000, another big number. That's the number of websites that are hacked daily, which is, we don't know that. There's no UL listing on a website to say, oh, this is a safe website. Oh, it's got an SSL certificate. It's got the little green or, lock on it. So you think it's safe. Threat actors are buying SSL certificates to make it look legitimate, to make it, to counterfeit a site. And, when we search things in Google, I want a new dachshund, for example. I'm going to put in dachshunds for sale, and I'm going to get a list of websites that, and I'm going to click on one. Do I know if that's a safe website? Do I know if that site's code has not been modified so that by simply visiting the site, I expose my computer to malware or some type of attack? So that's an alarming number, and a lot of small and medium-sized businesses that have websites aren't really paying attention or investing time, energy, and money into securing their websites and updating their websites and making sure that their code is locked and a variety of other techniques. And that's why, from an economies of scale standpoint, a bad guy's not going to go after me. He's going to go after a website where he's going to reach thousands and thousands and thousands of users. So 500 million, that is the number of ransomware attacks that occurred through September of 2021. That is an insane number, 500 million attacks. 14. So I think Dave mentioned this in his opening statement. 14%, well, actually, let me go down one. 14 is the malicious emails per employee that are delivered per year. And that means all the protections that we have, all the defenses that you may have, that regardless of that, because of varying techniques and the ability to kind of continue this whack-a-mole game where it's kind of like the radar gun versus the radar detector. We plug one hole, they find another. But your employee is, regardless of the defenses that you have, offense and defense capability, are still on average going to get 14 malicious emails that either contain a link to malware or an attachment that can detonate on your systems. You have 100 employees, do the math. 43%, to Dave's comment, 43% of all data breaches involve small to medium-sized businesses. And I'm going to go down a little bit on the slide here. And when those institutions and organizations were surveyed, only 14% of them were prepared to defend against the attackers. So, we're getting close to more than half. You have, regardless of your size, you have valuable information that I would love to have if I'm a bad guy. I want your bank account information. I want your customer lists. I want your employee social security numbers. I want access to your accounting system. I want access to your pricing lists. I want access to other confidential data that would be, extremely valuable. 95% of all successful cyber attacks can be avoided. And I know that seems like a crazy number, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to flush that number out over the next bunch of slides. And then being in Connecticut, we are 28th. 28th in the country for cyber attacks. I know there's some folks, Dave let me know, there's some folks from California. You are ranked 23rd in the country. I think we have some guests here from New York. You are 16th in the country. I know there's some folks here from Florida. You're 6th in the country. So that 95% is, something that's attainable. But if anyone tells you that they can protect you against 100% of all cyber attacks, and if you have Sirius Radio, you've heard those advertisements. They're lying. It's just not true.
John, do you know what the stats are for Iowa, where they rank?
Give me a second. I can tell you exactly where Iowa is. So Iowa ranked. Iowa is ranked 49th. So good job, Iowa. And these stats, as you can see from the sources, these are coming from the FBI, from the Internet Crime Center, from research organizations, research arms of IBM, of SonicWall, the firewall vendor, Sophos, a large anti-malware vendor, Trend Micro, another anti-malware vendor. A quick Google search, and you'll see these same stats kind of all over the place. So I want to talk about the 5 most common cyber attack vectors, and this kind of goes back to what we saw in the previous slide with some of the numbers that I showed. The number 1 attack vector is still phishing, and it is not going to stop. 90% of all successful attacks start with an email. Ransomware, and these are based in order. Ransomware, we talked about the numbers. Those numbers aren't going down. And there is a ransomware attack, as I mentioned, every 11 successful ransomware attack every 11 seconds. And then remember the other stat, that 43% of all successful ransomware attacks and data breaches are in small to medium-sized businesses. So I know the thinking is, oh, they're going after Home Depot. We all know about the Equifax breach, other large breaches that are reported, but they're not. They're going after you. They're going after your data because it's valuable to you. And if it's valuable to you, they will attempt to extort you for that data, which of course I will say exactly what the FBI says, and never pay the ransom, because only 50% of the time do you actually get your data back. And if you do, the likelihood is that there are still payloads on your system. So, and we'll talk about how to deal with that. Malware. I know people hear malware, they hear viruses. Malware is kind of the main family of that includes viruses and the types of viruses. We have Trojans that spread. We have credential stealing. Some of you may have jumped on a website and then you get a pop-up about, there's something wrong with your computer. This is Microsoft. Tech support scams are common. Malware that attempts to entice you to give credentials. Your mailbox is full. You need to add your credentials we'll give you more room on your mailbox. Your password is expired. So please put in your old password, put in a new password. Your new password will never work. They're already in your system the second you put in your password. Data breaches. Malware can be used to execute data breaches, but in a lot of ways, data breaches are sophisticated attacks by cyber threat actors to gain access to your networks, to gain access to your devices, your servers, your entire network. And the idea there is to steal your data and potentially hold you ransom for it. Data breaches are also without your knowledge. As you know, we read about it in the paper. How many times have you guys heard about the Equifax? That was 143 million Americans, highly personal and confidential data that was released to the bad guys. There are hundreds and thousands of those annually. And I'm going to do something a little bit different, which presenters typically don't do. I want you to open a website for me while we're here on this presentation, and to see if your data is been registered in any data breaches. I can tell you that when I put my email address into this website, my personal email address is in 8 data breaches, known data breaches. And remember, these are the known data breaches. So the website I want you to go to is called Have I Been Pawned? And I'll Um, I'll give you the actual URL, and it's really simple. Think of it as have I been owned, and instead of the O, put in a P. So it's have I been pwned.com. If you browse there and put your email address in, the likelihood that you are not in a data breach that's been reported, and this could include everything from personal information, social security numbers, passwords, driver's license number, geographic location, IP addresses, social media profiles. Data breaches are big business, and are quite common. And the likelihood that you have been spared of a data breach is probably slim to none at this point. The last one, and it seems like a technical thing, DDoS, or distributed denial of service. This is where threat actors will just flood your server or your website with so many requests per second that for all intents and purposes, you are unable to operate. Your users can't log in. You can't perform transactions. It's like someone unplugged you from the internet. So those are the top 5 most common cyber attack vectors that are out there. So we're going to get into the kind of practical section of this on what it is that you can do. And the first thing that I talk about all the time to organizations is patching. And what is patching? So as you know, we all have phones, and every once in a while it says, oh, there's an update for your phone. Do you want to, install now, or, postpone, or whatever? That's an idea of what a patch is. Patching has become something that's a little bit difficult to do, particularly for small to medium-sized businesses. But patching is a critical protection mechanism that you can use if you're fully patched. This is your application, so Windows, your Windows servers, Microsoft Office, Office 365, Adobe Reader, any other applications that you have on your system. You can reduce your chances of being successfully attacked by 60%. 40% of all attacks that are successful are accomplished by taking advantage of a vulnerability that has already been released as a patch that people just haven't installed. That's a pretty crazy number. So if and I want to talk about patching a little bit more globally, in the sense that, we all have cell phones, and for all intents and purposes, a cell phone is a computer. It's got applications, it's got your data, it's got your email, it's got passwords, it's got links to, personal identifiable information in your contacts. It is a walking computer. Patching your mobile devices is important, as important as patching your computers and servers. So it's not just about laptops and desktops and servers. Your mobile devices are just as important. The other thing that is always overlooked is patching of hardware. And you're like, okay, how do we patch hardware? Well, when you're patching a piece of hardware, whether that is a switch on your network, or a router at your house, or some other device like a camera that you might have, there's so many Internet of Things devices out there that do things, alarm systems, all these devices that are typically attached to the network, either hardwired or via wireless. Is hardware needs to be patched from time to time as vulnerabilities are found in hardware across the board. So patching your hardware is another important piece of the patching process. But lowering your risks that significantly by just doing that one thing. If there's one thing to take away from today, one thing, An aggressive patch management system is a surefire way to lower overall risk. Now, Microsoft has Patch Tuesday, and some of you may have heard of it. It's the second Tuesday of every month, and this is where they release all the security patches and critical patches for all Microsoft products. That's Windows servers, that's SQL Server, that Exchange Server if you're running your own mail server, and it's the entire Microsoft Office suite and other utilities. The goal should be that you are completely patched within 7 business days of Patch Tuesday. That is a realistic thing to do. And there are some things and tools that can be used to automate the process. So patching, you'll hear it from me, you'll hear it from most security experts, you'll hear it from the federal government. This is one of the most, it's not sexy, and nobody wants to, have their computer rebooted because they're busy, but patching is a significant risk reduction technique. And if you're not doing it, you're exposing yourself to risk that you otherwise wouldn't have to worry about. So that's a great takeaway. Security awareness training. I think Dave mentioned it in his preamble that, you're only as good as your weakest link. And the frontline army of your organization are your employees and your users. But we can't expect users to understand the complexity of some of the techniques that are available and are used every day to try to trick people into doing things, to clicking on things, to providing information, to making mistakes. Remember that 95% of all cybersecurity breaches overall are due to human error. Where you get an email from John Longo, like I mentioned before, and there's a link in it and say, here's the link, or, hey, I've changed banks and here's the new checking account number. Please pay all invoices to this new checking account number and routing number. And you look at the email and it looks good. And you're like, okay, you send it off to accounting. Accounting makes the change. And then I call you and say, where's my check? And they're like, we sent it to you. A classic example of a technique that folks may not be aware of. And by educating people on the various techniques, which change over time, and other cybersecurity topics, you raise awareness. If you raise awareness, you are lowering your risks of a successful attack, data breach, or interruption of your business. The data has been out there for years that companies that have a comprehensive security awareness training program, those companies reduce their risk of a successful cyber attack by 30%. Right? So we've got patching, which will reduce your risk by 60%. We've got security awareness training that will reduce your risks by 30%. If you do both, kind of seems like the math works, you're at 90%. So what's that other 10%? Well, we'll talk about that in a little while. The other aspect of security awareness training is testing. So how do we test our users? Well, there are plenty of organizations out there, some big ones, the market leaders are like KnowBe4. Some of you might be using them. They have, I don't know, some ridiculous amount of templates, phishing templates that you can send out. We routinely do that for all clients, and sometimes it comes from the CEO saying, "Listen, I need you to click on this link and do this," or, "Hey, it's we're making a change to our benefit system," or click here to join the in-office March Madness pool. The templates are designed to identify your weaknesses and your employees that are not operating safely. And security awareness training, along with continuous testing, is the kind of holy grail here, testing and training, testing and training. And I often get the question, how often should we fish test our users? And it kind of, from a baseline standpoint, I tell people that initially you should start out monthly. And then as you see your results getting better, along with in parallel, providing your end users with comprehensive training. And I'm not talking about hours of training a month. I'm talking 5, 10, 15-minute videos that everyone has a month to complete. They usually have quizzes or tests to make sure that people understand the information. And then you can start moving that needle down a little bit as far as, the cadence, and maybe doing it quarterly. We have some companies that do it continuously. It's weekly. And we have a stick. If you fail a phishing test, you're automatically assigned additional remediation training on the topic that you failed. You click on a link, well, you're going to get a phishing class. You download an attachment, it's probably going to be attachment based. If you fail more than 2, then you're going to go for an hour or 2 of additional training, security awareness training. I have some organizations that I work with that if you fail 3 times in a year, you no longer work at the organization. You're considered too high a risk. And the results of the training and the testing are part of annual reviews. And we're seeing more and more of this across almost every industry sector. As senior management wants to know that their users are trained, they're being tested, and for that, they're getting recognition of that as part of their annual review. Now, there's a bunch of other things that we can do from a testing standpoint, and for time constraint reasons, I won't go into things like penetration testing, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions about that. Anti-malware, I get a lot of questions about this, like what's the best one? The best one is one that's installed, that's reputable, that is dynamically updated, that provides alerts. Free versions of antivirus or anti-malware software is a problem. They do not have the level of sophistication in their ability to protect your organization. They don't have the ability to use artificial intelligence technology to identify risks. For example, hackers are using a technique called point-to-click, which they will send a link in an email that will get through most defenses. But when the link arrives in your email, it's been changed and it's designed to go to a malicious website. So point-to-click protection is typically, you're not going to find that in free. And, let's all face it, it's the old adage is still works. You get what you pay for. So make the investment in a competent, always updated, dynamically updated anti-malware product. And I'm happy to give recommendations, or you can ask me if I think yours is any good. There's a lot to choose from out there and varying costs, but they do provide, safe browsing. They do provide email protections. They do provide content filtering. They do provide website blocking. They do provide point-to-click protection. This is not the $12 a year anti-malware product that you may have at home. Very important. Firewalls. I can't tell you how many times I walk into an organization where they've asked me to come in and do an assessment, and I look at their firewall and I said, well, what is your firewall? And they're like, well, we're using Windows Defender and Windows Firewall on our workstations. It's not good enough. That's not a firewall. Well, we have a firewall that was provided by our internet service provider. That is not a firewall. So again, this is about, you're not going to win this battle without making some investments that can protect you. A stateful packet inspection based firewall for most small businesses is less than $1,000. The subscriptions to keep that maintained are usually a few $100s a year. Compared to the cost of a data breach and the downtime and reputational risk and loss of productivity, again, small investments, small insurance to make sure that you provide additional protections against not only existing threats, but the ever-evolving, ever-changing, constantly updated threat vectors that we see every single day. I can tell you that, across about 1,000 clients, we typically see anywhere between 400 and 600 attempts per day on firewalls that are successfully blocked. Your firewall is your best friend, and can significantly lower your risks of a successful cyber attack. So with everything that you can do, patching, firewalls, good anti-malware, we're going to go through a few other things. If you don't have encrypted offsite backup and a disaster recovery plan that you test at least once a year, then you are not prepared. And I can tell you that those organizations that do that are those that believe that it's not a question of, and I believe this too, of if you're going to be successfully attacked, it's a question of when you are. And having a backup and disaster recovery plan, and having that tested at least annually to see if you can restore your critical business applications, to restore your email, to restore your data, spreadsheets, Word documents, the things you use to run your business, your accounting systems, your agency management systems, without testing, having a written backup and disaster recovery plan that's tested annually, you will likely see this. And this is your worst nightmare. This is a copy of a screenshot from the Wannacry ransomware attack. And I want you to, just for a second, to close your eyes and imagine walking into your offices on Monday morning after a lovely weekend, and you turn on all your computers and all your servers, and you see this screen. So then there's that panic that sets in. So you have been successfully attacked by a ransomware threat actor. And, you can read the screen, they want some Bitcoins, and they're going to put a timer up. And if you don't do it by, a certain time, then, it's going to double or triple. And then they'll set an expiration date but what would you do? So who would you call? What process would you use? What resources would you need? Do you have your IT after hours phone numbers? Do you have all your vendors listed? Do you have your critical business applications prioritized? What do we need first to run our business? What do we need second? What do we need third? I can tell you I've been involved in plenty of these after the fact. And the biggest problem that I see is that there wasn't any plan. There was the assumption that this won't happen to us. And then it's all hands on deck with no organization. It's very stressful. It's stressful for clients. It's stressful for employees. It has potential legal implications for your business. It has potential reputation risks. It has, in many states, reporting requirements. It has loss of productivity, and there's plenty of loss of productivity calculators on the internet. Go find one and put the number of employees you're in and the number of days that you're down, and have that calculate. You'll be shocked. According to IBM and the Ponemon Institute, which is an independent organization, we've seen the average cost of a data breach and ransomware attack go from 3.62 million in 2020 to 4.27 million in 2021. Now you're like, how is that possible? $4 million, that's a lot of money. These are losses of productivity. This is loss of data. This is exfiltration of data. This is potentially, which I don't recommend, the payment of ransomware. The average ransomware payment in 2021 was $233,000. Some of the supply chain attacks that we read about last year, allegedly millions of dollars were paid to the ransomware threat actors to get their data back. It doesn't take long for this stuff to add up. So having a disaster recovery plan, thinking about it, strategizing on how you would recover. Can you stay? Do you need to get new hardware? Do you have to move your location? How would you continue to do business? Are there manual systems that you could deploy? This is part of the thinking process. Password hygiene. So on the device that I'm showing this presentation on, I have a password cracking database that has 26 million of the most commonly used passwords on it. And I can run these utilities against any system that I'd like, that I have access to and permission. And I can assure you that password hygiene is not being followed in your organizations. People using password one, people using their dog's name and their date of birth, or summer 2022. So the password game has gotten a lot more complicated. And the recommendations are that passwords be complex. And we've moved away from these complex passwords, which no one can remember. So they put it on a sticky on their monitor, or it's under their keyboard. And when we do physical audits of organizations, I can tell you that 5% of the time we can find the password on someone's desk. Consider using a password manager where you have to remember one password, just one, to get into the password manager, and then the rest of your passwords are there. Don't use complex passwords that are hard to remember. Most systems now support what are called password phrases. So here's a classic one. I like to eat hot dogs. Do you know how hard that is to crack? Because there's spaces in there, or words that don't belong together. Forever, monkey, television, lasagna. Almost impossible to crack. It's certainly not going to be in my password crack library. Another important thing that you can do for passwords is to employ anytime you can two-factor authentication. We all have bank accounts, right? We have apps on our phones. We log into our bank account. They want to push us a 5-digit number. And we need to provide that number for us to successfully complete the login and access our accounts. But social media accounts, Facebook allows for two-factor authentication, Instagram, LinkedIn, most of them do. But you'd be surprised, as we are more moving away from on-premises software and using the cloud, software as a service, where a lot of our applications are residing outside our network and they're basically on the internet. Deploying two-factor authentication is an absolute must at this point. If it can do it, great. If it can't, pressure your vendors as to why it can't. particularly if there's confidential business information, trade secrets, personal identifiable information, etc. You'd be surprised how many applications are out there that support two-factor authentication or some form of multi-factor authentication that are just not turned on, that folks just don't turn it on. And I realize that it's an extra step in a lot of ways, right? We're all busy, and you've got, someone's on the phone and they're screaming at you, I need this information, and you got to log in, and then you got to wait for the code, and then put the code in, and then get to where you need to go. Again, a small price to pay to make sure that your information is protected. Now, I want to be clear that it is not impossible, again, to hack two-factor authentication. It's not. It is highly improbable, though. It takes a fair amount of effort over a long period of time to successfully hack two-factor authentication methods. And again, when I'm a bad guy and I'm hitting your website, or I'm hitting what I know that you use for accounting or whatnot, even though I'm on your network, I'm not going to get your two-factor authentication because I don't have your device. Again, I'm going to look at that and say, oh, they clearly have two-factor authentication for the remote workforce. I'm going to move on to and find the next guy that doesn't. And again, what I'm trying to do is have you not be that low-hanging fruit, so that you can just be skipped over and say, too difficult. Let me. There's plenty of other organizations out there. Let me find someone who isn't as well protected. And again, remember, and I'm just going to keep reinforcing this: 43% of all data breaches involve small to medium-sized companies. So that's companies with less than 100 employees. They're after you. Vendor management. And this goes to what I was talking about just a little in the last screen. We're moving everything to the cloud. Our backups in the cloud, our accounting systems are in the cloud, our critical business applications are in the cloud, our transaction systems are in the cloud, our banking systems are in the cloud, our insurance systems are in the cloud. Everything's in the cloud. We're moving away from on-premises applications to software as a service and managed cloud applications. Well, who's actually managing those? Your vendor? Well, probably not. So let's take an example of one of the most widely used file sharing services in the world, and that's Citrix ShareFile. A lot of people use ShareFile to transmit large files or confidential or encrypt emails and send encrypted emails or encrypted attachments. And so you're like, oh, well, I'm doing business with Citrix, and so I must be in their server farm. They must have a farm of servers. The reality is that they don't do that. They rely on Amazon Web Services, AWS. So, it's important for you to understand who are you doing business with, who are your partners, and to regularly audit those partners to get their cybersecurity statements, which are typically done annually. They're called SOC 2 audits, where an independent third party will evaluate their information technologies general controls, who has access to your data, who has access to the data center, who has access to the data to the servers that house your data. What are these tested? Are they penetration tested? Are they protected by anti-malware? Are they protected by firewalls? Are they protected against physical disruption? Do they have backup power systems, fire control systems? Taking a look at your critical vendors and reviewing them annually is a extremely important activity for you to do, at least annually. and can lower your risks of being hacked without you knowing about it. Now, does your vendor have to report to you if there's a data breach? Absolutely. But if you find that they're not doing penetration testing, if you find that they don't do third-party audits, then you may want to consider moving to a different vendor that does do that. So mobile device management, again, computer. I've got laptops, I've got Surface Pros, I've got iPads, I've got mobile device management. Do we know where these devices are? Do you know what data is on it? Can we remotely control them? Can we wipe them out if they're lost or stolen? Are they encrypted? Do they have anti-malware installed on them? How are they connecting to the network? Are we allowing public Wi-Fi? Are we doing the smart thing and spending $4 a month per device to use a VPN so that I'm sitting in Panera Bread, which I routinely do, and can get the IP addresses and device names of every computer that's attached to the free Wi-Fi at Starbucks or anywhere else. So you can't think of your network as just those devices that are sitting in your office when your laptops move around, your tablets move around, your mobile phone obviously moves around. These are part of the network. These are not removed from it. They're part of it. And the same level of protections need to be discussed on how do we protect mobile devices? How do we control them? What would happen? Again, take a minute. What would happen if someone lost a laptop or it was stolen at the airport or it was left in a car and the car was broken into? What data is on there? What requirements do you have to report that data as missing based on the state that you live in and the state laws that you're dealing with? So it's an important thing to really look at those devices as part of your network. And then the last thing I want to talk about is, and this comes from the CEO and the president of the organizations here on the call today, on you have to create a culture of cybersecurity. Now, what does that mean? That means that it comes from the top, and we're going to have a cybersecurity improvement committee, and we're going to, at staff meetings, we are going to have an agenda, standing agenda item on cybersecurity. We're going to talk about, oh my God, did you see that phishing email from last week? What a joke. They were trying to get me to do this. We're going to report, we're going to congratulate people for being champions of good cybersecurity. We're going to report on people that report things that don't look quite right, that could have saved the organization. So in that cybersecurity culture also has to travel through the organization down from the CEO to the CFO, because if you're not investing in cybersecurity protection, then you are going to get hacked. This costs money. Cybersecurity liability insurance, it costs money. Investing in products and in time and in training and in awareness and in testing and in patching and in firewalls, all the things that I've talked about today, that has to come from the top. So creating that culture, I think is probably one of the most overlooked things on how to successfully reduce risks of a successful cybersecurity attack. So with that, I'm going to stop talking, take a sip of water, and I am happy to answer any questions or about anything that you've heard today or anything that you didn't hear today.
How do we access tools to test phishing?
So typically tools, probably the number one organization out there is a company called KnowBe4. It's KNOWBE and then the number 4. They're the market leader in offering both security awareness training. I think at this point they have over 2,000 different video training courses. It's a per user subscription annually. It is not big money. And as part of the subscription, you can do have access to all their phishing templates. Everyone has a portal. Everyone, you can assign training to folks. You can, they have other add-ons for if you are using Microsoft Outlook, there's a phish report button. So if something comes up in your email and it doesn't look right, you can hit phish report, goes to your IT people, it removes it from your inbox. So there's a lot of things that KnowBe4 can do. And again, it's a very, very small investment with a lot of content, a lot of phishing templates, and great reporting so that you can see how you're doing compared to other organizations in your sector and of your size. And you can start to track your progress, your failures and your progress, and identify your risks and attempt to mitigate those risks. So KnowBe4 is a great company. I use it almost exclusively over many clients, hundreds of clients.
And we have one more question, and we have about 2 minutes left. We don't want to go much past the hour. It says, can you explain SMS security and your recommendation for phone settings?
Well, so it's a bigger topic than 2 minutes. What I would tell you is that mobile device attacks generally are up by over 200% year to year from 2020 to 2021. We've all gotten bogus text messages. So smishing or SMS, smishing is a very common attack vector that, is, part of the category of phishing. And it's the same common sense. If you don't know the person and there's a link in there, then just delete it and block that number. There are additional, depending on the platform, whether it's iOS and tools that can be had that can protect your, your SMS environment or your texting environments a little bit more comprehensively with reporting and alerts, et cetera, et cetera. Hope that, I know that's a kind of a short answer, but I'm happy to take additional discussion of that offline.
It says, my company was not hacked, but my personal email may have been. What does one do about that?
Well, so it's very simple. Change all your passwords. Do not share passwords, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many times I talk to someone, they're like, yeah, well, I use the same password for my bank as I do for my 401k, as I do for my, account on Amazon and Target. Change all your passwords, use complex password phrasing, use two-factor authentication, watch your checking account, your banking accounts regularly. Be diligent. Sometimes those hacks, like that site I suggested you go to, this is not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. The backend providers left databases open, or hackers were able to successfully pierce their defenses. So it requires a wholesale, use a password manager, a wholesale reinvention of your online password management and hygiene.
And one more quick one. How often should passwords be changed?
So, in the corporate world, typically the settings are every 60 to 90 days. But, many of the clients that I work with, we use two-factor authentication to even allow someone to log into the network. If you do that, then you don't really have to worry about changing passwords so frequently. Now, because the password is only one part of being able to successfully log in. If you're not using two-factor authentication to log into your network, then your password should be at least 12 characters long. They should be complex. I like phrases that I mentioned. There should be at least a 3 strikes you're out rule. So if someone attempts to log in 3 times unsuccessfully, their account is locked for at least an hour and they have to call IT to get it unlocked. But at least 60 to 90 days.
Okay, and then we had a few requests for your contact information, so we can send that out to everyone after the webinar.
I'm not giving you my dark web handle.
No.
Well, John, thank you. As always, your insights and your commentary is always makes my hair a little whiter. Maybe it's done that to some folks on the call as well. For everybody on the call, thanks for joining us today. I hope you found the information helpful and thought-provoking. And I think our game plan was this: to get you thinking about the simple things that you just may take for granted, that may cause you to sort of put into action ways to protect yourselves. Here's the thing: we're all in this together. It's we fight this fight as a team. We're your bank for the most part. You're our clients. We want to make sure that we're all on the same page, and that we're trying to safely navigate our way through these crazy times that we live. For those of you who are our customers, thanks again for your business. We always appreciate it. And on behalf of our entire team here, we thank you. And I hope you all have a safe and pleasant afternoon. And information on this will be available. Marie is always good about getting stuff out. And John is, a font of information that, we'll be able to put you in touch with and help you get moving forward on this if you're as concerned as I am every night when I go to bed about these things. So take care, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. It's a pleasure.